Voices!
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 31 of Unleash the Podcast. I am, as always, Jim Deathblow Reed. The guy waving a whole bunch over there is John the Blevens.
Hey!
Yeah, so we had A-Flex on last week. This week we're settling back into a little bit more of a normal show, although we are certainly hoping to get some extra, some more viewers in here. It was a lot of fun last week. We had a really good time, so we're hoping to continue that and do that a little bit more often. We'll get some details. Please do follow us on Twitter at Unleash the Cast if you want to know a little bit in advance, or you want to get some teasers. We usually do. If something big is going to be happening, we usually do put something up there. And yeah. John is pointing, of course, at our email address. You can always send us questions that we'll answer at the end of every show, unleashthecast@gmail.com. How was your week this week, John?
Busy.
Busy.
Always busy. Busy night, but there's always room for another.
Well, I know that. It's my Christmas, so of course, we'll be unveiling our new format this week where we spend 45 minutes discussing football, and then 15 minutes maybe talk. I don't know. Usually we'll play our games based off Hearthstone still, but we're definitely just for the next 17 weeks going to dominate things with football talk, right?
Not me. I
No.
don't do football.
You're dead to me.
I'm not the football. It would, although for what it's worth, the show would in fact be ruined if I did do football. Just like the show will be ruined when season 6 of Game of Thrones comes out.
Yeah, I've got to say, I have definitely, for all the increase in my playtime, as soon as football started, it was like Sunday. I just no, couch, go, just don't move. Deliver the pizza. I'm not picking it up. I'm here. I'm watching football.
Can we get souvlaki? I will watch football if there's souvlaki and pizza.
I'll tell you what, brother. Any Sunday you want, you just head over to my house. The souvlaki place, it's in the ground. It stays there. And
That's true.
I will always be here watching football. So, all right. But seriously, though, we are actually a Hearthstone podcast, surprisingly enough, and we are going to be talking about that a little bit today. Not too much. We don't want to scare you guys and suddenly start talking about the game a lot. But
yeah.
What we'll be discussing today, just to give you a little bit of an idea, are some of the undeniable cards, the cards that have shaped the metagame from TGT. We'll discuss some of the things they might be able to do in the future, possible uses that aren't being unlocked for them, and just really why they've been able to do so, when in general, John, we talked about this a little bit before the show, in general, TGT's kind of been a low-impact thing, there's not a drastic new number of decks like there was with TGT, and even, to a lesser extent, BRM, Blackrock Mountain, even, obviously Patron, but there were a couple other new things that came out, so. Yeah,
for sure. It seems like TGT has been kind of there's a couple of cards that'll go in a few decks, but nothing, besides the big one, the Secret Paladin. Everything else has just been okay, we're going to take some TGT cards, throw them in an old deck, not, holy crap, we're playing this new archetype, which we kind of thought, we kind of predicted that would happen, and it hasn't happened yet, so.
Yeah, it definitely seemed, I do think we were kind of spot on in our analysis of, we felt that TGT was going to slow the metagame down, and I see that, we called it.
For sure.
Face decks are dead, and I don't see them anymore, There's still aggressive decks. Aggro decks weren't going to ever go anywhere, and we never thought they were. But just that suicide face style of I don't care about board control. You can play all you want. I'm going to get as much value as I can early and maximize the damage I can do over the course of the game.
I
was just going to say, it's been a little surprising, too, because it's not been the cards we expected to do that were doing it. Everybody was really big on Healing Wave, and me and you weren't all in. We liked it, but we weren't all in on it. Any thoughts as to really why that is? What to you is holding Healing Wave back?
Well, Jim, I know it's been a long time since you played Magic, but gain life spells are always unplayable. I'm still surprised that they ever see play in Hearthstone. Actually, I mean, it makes sense when you can heal minions because it's kind of like card advantage, but just straight up gain X life is never playable in Magic, so it's never a surprise to me when it's not good in Hearthstone, especially when it can be capped. if you play Healing Wave and you've only lost 5 life, then you only gain 5 life. You can't go above. Like in Magic, if you gained 14 life, you'd at least be able to go above your original life total. In Hearthstone, you can't do that unless it's armor. So I honestly don't. And like trading cards for almost any amount of life is not worth it unless it's like, I don't know. 7. You have to play it as though it's always 7. You can't hope it's going to be 14 because it's just such a pipe dream. Like it just doesn't work like that. And if you're only gaining 7 for 3 mana and a card, it just does not. Like if it read gain 7 life for 3 mana, wouldn't play that card at all. I don't think.
Well, and just to kind of add on that, and this isn't really our main topic of conversation, just a tangent I thought was interesting, so I wanted to go on. But I really think the reason that card's not been playable is because the other cards have been successful at slowing the metagame down already. You know, that creates this metagame where Dragon Priest is really popular, and even the Secret Paladin deck, not super aggressive. It just wants to live until it plays Mysterious Challenger, and then you just kind of, you win from there. You start winning at that point. So, you know, all these face decks are out of the format, which means that now you're playing this just simply like no value, gain 7 life for 3 mana, and that's not going to be good in a control versus control sense. Even gain 14 against control, it's not great. You need to play cards that are going to take the board over, sweep their board, what have you. So yeah, it's been definitely an interesting go so far with these new cards.
It's been the case since the beginning of Hearthstone is that tempo is so important, and spending 3 mana to gain 7 life is just such a horrible tempo swing in your opponent's favor. Like if they're dealing you damage with minions and they like say they attack you for like 6 or whatever, like they have 6 power worth of minions, you spend your turn, you gain 7 or 14 life, whatever, then you just pass the turn back. You haven't done anything with the board. They just hit you for 6 again. Like, so then already you're effectively only gaining, you know, X minus Y, where Y is you're only where Y is the amount of power they have. So like it just gets even worse, and things that make like that card, the card Healing Wave being inherently worse than it seems, does not bode well for its playability, considering even at face value it's really not that good.
All right, John, well, we'll move things on just a little bit here. And it's time, of course, as it is every week.
Yes.
For the blevens Bluffs the Death Blow. Or
Death Blow, yes. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this game, it is basically just a ripoff of the popular NPR news quiz, Wait, Don't Tell Me show called Bluff the Listener. What I do is I bring 3 different scenarios or instances or things that happened, and I read them to Jim. One of them actually happened and is true. The other 2 came from the mind of blevens, and Jim's job is to figure out which one actually happened. So Jim, and I've been keeping up with the themes, and I kept up the theme this week too. So this week's theme is Brian Kibler.
Uh-oh.
Everyone's favorite.
Kibbles and
the most handsome man in Magic, and also probably in Hearthstone. Mr. Kibler. So, number 1, Brian Kibler built a dragon deck in the rogue class that he piloted to legend. Number 2, Brian Kibler had a Cro-Magus die trigger both Effigy and Duplicate. The Effigy gave him a Gromash. A few turns later, the opponent trades some minions into the Grom, and also Kibler replayed a Cro-Magus, so he has 2 8-drops out. Trades some minions in, and light bombs the whole board away. However, Brian played a second Effigy, and that Effigy gave him Kel'Thuzad, which brought back both the Grom and the Cro-Magus.
Okay.
So, long story short, a million Effigies, Cro-Magus, Grom, Kel'Thuzad. And number 3, Brian Kibler played a game of Hearthstone using a Dragon Mage deck where he cast Deathwing 4 times.
Dragon Mage cast Deathwing 4 times.
Played a Dragon Mage deck. Cast Deathwing not once, not twice, but 4 times. So what is it? Is it the Rogue deck? The Rogue Dragon list made it to Legend. The long and convoluted Cro-Magus, Kel'Thuzad, Gromash, Effigy turn. Or not turn, sequence of turns. Or a Dragon Mage game where Deathwing was cast 4 times.
So I know Dragon Rogue has been played by some people. So that's a definite possibility, but I haven't heard of Kibler playing. I'd like to think you would include dragons in your Kibler thing. But what was 3? Can you give me 3 again?
Number 3 was a Dragon Mage deck where Deathwing, the king of all dragons, I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm saying it is, was cast 4 times.
All right. I'm going to throw that one out, and I'm going to say that you've disappointed me and gone with the far too specific one and go with number 2.
You, Jim, are correct again!
Right. I knew it as soon as you seemed like I was trying to convince me I was wrong. I knew I had you. All right, yeah, it was just a little too specific, but I'm disappointed that you'd go with a Kibler event and have it not be...
Cro-Magus is a dragon, man.
Oh man, I had a crazy game with the Cro-Magus with Tempo Mage. I'm playing a lot of Tempo Mage lately.
Yeah.
And I portal Cro-Magus, and then I wait for turn 8 so that I can go 5 mana Cro-Magus, 3 mana Arcane Intellect, and draw 4 cards. Yeah. I do that, and I go like, oh, my draws were Frostbolt, and then Mirror Entity, and I'm already sitting there with Archmage Antonidas in my hand. So I proceed to the next turn, go Archmage, Frostbolt, Mirror Entity. No, I'm sorry. I was able to do all 4 of them because I had the Sorceress Apprentice on the board while this is happening. So I literally just go straight into 4 of them. And like at the end of that game, my hand was 8 fireballs. And I was just sitting there like laughing my face off. Awesome. I ended up drawing one like the next turn, so that doubled that one, and then I just played a mess of them. It was a hilarious game. Ronan, by the way,
pretty strong card.
Not too shabby.
Pretty strong card. I definitely misinterpreted him.
Yeah, so many synergies with that guy on that deck. I mean, just from. I love to sandbag the Sorcerer's Apprentice now, especially in the control matchups where you don't need to. You have to be able to live through the late game, you know. But when you pick up those 3 arcane missiles, and like you've also got like an unstable portal or something like that, and you get to now all of a sudden you get to like cast 5 or 6 spells the turn you're activating Antonidas, and like it's just crazy amounts of value.
Yeah.
Falcone Punch put up a video too as well where he got Cut Purse off of his piloted shredder. Mm-hmm. And got 3 activations on it. So when he goes Antonidas, and he was like planning this Antonidas turn with all these coins from the cut purse. Yeah. And then he's sitting there and like he draws the Flame Waker, and he gets to like lethal this control warrior on turn. I don't even know. It was like crazy early for what you'd expect. And he's just like, oh, I guess I want to do some math. 22 you. Like, and it was just like, oh, it was pretty incredible.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah, Mage is a lot of fun to me right now, and it's not much about the new cards, but Ronan is definitely one of them that gets in there and does some work. So speaking about not being about the new cards, John, let's actually talk about the new cards that are making an impact.
Yep.
And we'll start here with Darnassus Aspirant, really what we called probably the best card in the set.
Yeah.
Now, it's not having the biggest impact of the set, but it is just a phenomenon. It's really helped stabilize Druid and give it some more, scary as this is, to give it more consistency. It was already a tournament staple because of how consistent it was and how level the matchups were. It's just a great deck in my mind to open up your tournament round with. So, John, talk to me about what this card's done, and maybe some ways. There's ways to abuse this card apart from silencing it, which we do see with Keeper of the Grove. There's ways to abuse this card. I don't know if you remember the conversations we had about him, but do you see them being any way to do that?
I don't remember what we talked about.
If you bounce him with Youthful Brewmaster, the Death Rattle
that's
can't
right.
trigger,
The Death
and then
Rattle
the next
doesn't
time
happen.
you play him, he ramps again.
Yeah, that's true. You know, that kind of that's actually pretty sweet. I can't believe I forgot about that. But yeah, Darnassus Aspirant, really great card. Like you said, adds consistency. The problem is it doesn't do anything new. It's just the third and fourth. Well, actually, this is the wild growths are probably the third and fourth Darnassus Aspirants. Honestly,
Yes.
this is better than wild growth,
This
but
is way better.
it's so much better. And there really is no downside to it. It's just, okay, well, you killed my guy. I guess I don't have the mana crystal anymore. But like, I didn't have it beforehand, so
Right.
yeah.
I didn't lose anything. I just
Yeah, you didn't
lost
lose
what I
anything. You just
gained
went
for a
back.
minute, yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the card's insane. It's just like it's going to be in all the Druid decks forever now. I really can't see myself not playing it. It's just too good. And yeah. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen anything like wonky like that, where you just bounce the aspirant and game. I guess the problem with that is that if you don't have it early, it doesn't really do anything. Like after a certain point, that combo doesn't do anything. Like
Right.
it literally does nothing.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse things in the world than bouncing an Ancient of Lore, let's say.
True.
So
I mean, I could
there's other
definitely
ways to sneak some synergy in there, but
I could definitely see you playing some Brewmasters in the deck. The problem is that the deck list is already so tight that like you have to. I know that you're always in favor of cutting the combo because you are like morally opposed to it, but it's still the best thing you can do. Like
yeah, I'm never gonna ladder with the combo. Like you couldn't.
Right.
I don't think you could pay me
And
to.
I'm not gonna check, but did we put the 5/4 Druid guy on this list? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will save my discussion for when he comes up.
Yeah. So this card to me, like John kind of nailed it, right? Like I don't think the ways to abuse this guy are really viable. They're a whole lot of fun. So if you're ever looking to goof around and maybe make a super ramp deck, definitely look to do that because you'd definitely be having more fun than your opponent with that deck.
True.
But like John said, like I was already bored with Druid, okay, and they didn't do anything with this card. As much as they made the deck better, they didn't change anything. They didn't do anything. The deck's exactly the same. So
yeah,
I haven't really messed with it at all.
I played the Druid deck a lot in the NVIDIA tournament, and it never changed, and it was always exactly the same amount of good the whole time. It was just it was old faithful like that deck and Suck Fubs Boys Face Hunter were just old reliables, and I brought them every week to every tournament I played in, and they always did exactly as good. Like and Darnassus Aspirant doesn't change that at all. I don't think it affects your matchups. Actually, it might make you better against. Probably makes you better against Warrior if they don't have the axe. Like, I guess I'm trying to think. Like, is axe probably keep axe against Druid?
It's the one where you typically were like hesitant about it. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
man, I really need to get to. Against Druid, and if I'm playing Control Warrior, I'm already in a bad mood because I'm going to lose. But I really look for those card combinations. I want Shield Block, Shield Slam.
Yeah.
I want those things. I want Cruel Taskmaster Execute. I want the answers to your big Innervate play that's going to put you behind on cards and give me my window. So I would at times want to mulligan away my Fiery Winx. And I did as I was like learning the matchup. I stopped doing it though. It's just like mulliganing a Frostbolt in Mage. Like why? There's never a time where you're not going to find value for this card.
It's always an efficient answer. Yeah, and now it's definitely so because you need to kill the Darnassus Aspirant or else you just. Well, A, you're taking damage, and B, they just wild growth for free.
Yeah, when you can't kill it, that's their window to get ahead of you.
They just go. get way ahead. And I guess it gives you a little bit more value for your Keeper of the Groves, which sometimes like had to go 2 to the face. I don't even know if trading like the Death Rattle is worth 2 damage. It might be in some cases. So it gives you a little bit more value for that. But like we said, it really didn't add any new flavors or twists to the generic Druid build. It was just a solid card to put in it.
Yeah, and John, a card that did make some changes to the Druid deck is the Savage Combatant that you were talking about. It's the 4-mana 5/4 beast. With Inspire, give your hero +2 attack this turn. Really solid, aggressively costed body, and we weren't down on this card when we reviewed it, but we didn't quite
did we
review?
Oh yeah, we did review this card. Yeah,
this is one of the ones we could. We weren't down on it, but we didn't quite see the value of Druid being able to clear out 3 toughness minions.
He's really annoying. He's not super aggressively costed. Like these stats never see play unless the ability, like the only time it ever saw play before this was Blast Mage, and you're playing Blast Mage because it's Blast Mage, not because it's a 5/4 necessarily. And honestly, Yeti stats are better than this, but like it gives you a lot of power for 4 mana, which is good. And the ability to just control the board afterwards is so huge. Like playing this guy on 6 or playing this guy innervating, hero powering, wiping their board, like is such a huge play. And like even if they have to Deathbite it, like they took 5 damage, which is not insignificant. Any amount of damage you can do to put them closer to 14 so you can combo off on turn 9 or whatever turn is just gravy. And like these guys get better in multiples because it makes your hero have 5 attack.
Never seen that board state, thank goodness.
I only saw it for about a second, then I conceded. But yeah, like innervating this guy out early is so good because all of a sudden, like sometimes the problem is like you'll innervate coin, play Piloted Shredder, and then the next 2 turns are awkward because you have to hero power for like minimal value. But this guy, like when you hero power, like they can't just like play guys for free, because their guys will get killed by the hero power, not the Savage Combatant. And the fact that it makes your hero power able to kill the Piloted Shredder makes it so his 4 health is not as big of an issue as we probably... I imagine I probably said that this doesn't trade well with Piloted Shredder when I saw it, because I say that about everything that has 4 health. So I probably overlooked the fact that you can kill it with your hero power. But yeah, this guy's been great. But much like the Darnassus Aspirant, he's made the deck better. He's made the Druid deck better. He's maybe added a little wrinkle into the Druid deck, but in my opinion, he hasn't changed the Druid deck at all. Like, he fits in the, I guess, Sen'jin Shieldmaster, Piloted Shredder slot. Like, I think this guy serves a similar function to Piloted Shredder or perhaps Sen'jin Shieldmaster. He's not created a beast Druid deck, at least not a good one. I've seen it played a couple of times, but it's not that good. He's not created, a hyper-aggressive savagery deck or something, which I wish he did. But he's just a better, or at least a different and better in some situations version of like a Paladin Shredder or Sen'jin Shieldmaster. Like, good solid card, does some good stuff for the deck, didn't really change the deck all that much.
Yeah, I liked your point about how he curved, like he smoothed out the deck's curve a little bit. He made things less awkward in the middle of the turn, made it less awkward recovering from an innervate because your hero ability is that much better. Like, when you think about what it does to the hero ability, it becomes 2 hunter hero abilities. It deals 3 damage and it gains you 1 life. So it's a 4 life, or a 4-point swing in life just for your 2 mana. It's really good.
Oh yeah, and it also just turns your hero power into Fiery War Axe, which is like that you can use forever, and it also gains you life. So like, in terms of board control, it's insane. So
moving on here, John, we're going to talk about one where we had a little bit of conversation about this while we were setting up for the show, and how this guy, we were huge on him. We loved him when we looked at him. And he's still an inclusion, and he's part of what makes Shaman a little more viable, in my opinion. But he's not near what I thought he would be. He's definitely, you know, more underwhelming than it looked like he would be. It felt like, you know, that pure 2-for-1. And don't get us wrong, he's phenomenal when a 3-4 pops out of him. There's no denying
or a
that.
0-3 draw card.
Yep, I've seen that card live for 4 turns. The summon totem that lives for 4 turns and draws a card every time is in fact broken. But John, what is going on here? We definitely both really thought Shaman would not only become viable, which like I said, I think it has. I know you're a little less sharing that opinion with me. But why isn't this? We thought it was going to push to tier 2, tier 1 at times. And it really hasn't done that. Can you provide any insight there?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. You know, it's a type of card that it's got a pretty big upside. Like you said, if you hit a 3-4 off this, you're in really good shape. The problem is that when you're playing 100 games on the ladder, like what percentage are you getting the 3-4? What percentage are you getting the 0-2 health totem that doesn't really do anything for you? What percentage are you getting a spell damage totem when you don't need it? What percentage are you just getting a 1-1? Like at that point, like if he just read 3 mana 3-2, put a 1-1 into play, like that's a good arena card probably, but it's not good stats. Like there are 4 3s for 3 that have positive abilities. Like that's the end of his ability. Like he doesn't have another ability if he puts a 1-1 into play. Like the problem is like he has a pretty big upside, but his downside is really big, and playing a 3 mana 3-2 and getting a 1 mana like hero power out of it apparently just isn't good enough. And that's basically what it is. Like you'll play a 2 mana 3-2 vanilla, which as we know for sure is not playable and constructed, like just not good enough. And then you'll get a 1 mana hero power totem, or like that level. Like there's the one that gains you 4 life, which is pretty rough. And then I guess the only good ones are the pump your guys for +2 attack, Flame Tongue, draw a card, Mana Tide, and the 3-4. Those are the 3 really good ones. And even honestly, like on turn 3, the Flame Tongue totem isn't that good because they can just attack it at will. Like it.
Yeah, I think the thing with this card is, John, that you have to build your deck for it, right? Like, if you're playing the Thunderbluff Valiant version of Shaman, you play this card for sure because it drops totem on the board, and having extra totems is good. Or if you're playing this in more of a mid-range that maybe isn't playing totem, you don't play it unless you have 2 Defender of Arguses. You're going to have your 2, Flame Tongue totems, but you have to have reasons, maybe you even want to play it with Alpha, Direwolf Alpha, something like that. Like the adjacent minions pumping it to me is big because, having something that goes, turn 3 this guy to put 2 guys out, if your board's empty already, it's pretty nice to follow it up with turn 4 Defender of Argus. You're getting your extra value there, and it's really serving a good purpose. On its own, though, if you don't have ways to help it through its bad times, it's more underwhelming than it looked like initially.
Right. You need to be able to take advantage of the worst case scenario, which you might be able to salvage it, but the problem is the power level of Hearthstone decks and the speed and ability to overtake missed turns due to tempo loss in Hearthstone is so high that like you don't have room in your deck, and you don't have room in like your turn structure to just have blanks. And that's really what this is if it doesn't hit. And for what it's worth, to kind of save our backs a little bit, when we saw this card, we didn't see the whole set. So the world was our totem oyster at that time. We didn't know what totems were going to come out. We had only seen the 3-4. And I think that's the only other totem that's in the set, right?
That's
That's the
one I
only
can
totem
think
in the
of,
set.
and it's definitely the only one that's good with this. I don't think there were any others.
Yeah, so we saw this, and there was only a handful of cards. I think this was actually from the first wave of spoilers from the show match.
Yeah, it might have been before the 3/4 even.
I think it was the same time because I remember them playing the 3/4, and I'm being like, "Oh wow,
Yeah.
that card's saying, oh wow, that's a totem. Oh my god, that card can summon it." This was the card that I think it took us forever to find the picture of.
That could very well be.
So when we saw this card for the first time, we didn't know what the set was going to be, and then I think when we looked back at it again, we still didn't have the whole set. So, you know. This is another one of those cards that we talk about all the time. That's like, keep an eye out for this one. Every time they release a new totem, it could get better. I guess on the flip side is that every time they release a bad totem, this gets worse. So
It's true.
if they only make quality totems, then I guess it starts getting better. But I guess you need to add more good ones than bad ones, or else this card gets worse. I don't know. Basically, it just never panned out because the only thing that excuse me, there's only one guy out of what, like 10? Is it 10 or 9 maybe totems?
I think it's 7 or 8.
There's 5 hero power.
4 hero power.
Oh, there's 4 hero power. Oop.
Vitality, Flame Tongue, Mana Tide, and Vitality, Flame Tongue, Mana Tide, and total.
Oh, and 3/4 and 3/4.
Yep.
There's 8 totems. So, you know, you've got 3 out of 8 to get something that's pretty good, and then 2 out of 8 are unconditionally good. 1 out of 8 is sometimes really good, sometimes all right, and I guess 5 out of 8 are only ever mediocre unless you like need the spell damage. So, yeah, it's just the stats just don't work out for it. You're gonna get bad more than you're gonna get good.
Yeah, and we've been doing a lot of negative talk about this card, but honestly, it's on this list because it's good. It's not a bad card. It's just it didn't live up to our expectations. So
right,
yeah, keep that in mind. Definitely, not something you should think about cutting from your list if you've been having success with it. But yeah, it just fell a little short of what we thought, despite its rightful inclusion on this list, I think.
Yeah.
All right, moving on here, John. I don't know if anybody knew this or not, but there was a 2-mana 3/4 totem that was printed in this set.
I didn't even know there were totems in this set. Is totems a thing? Oh wait, we just spent the last 15 minutes talking about him.
Yeah, so we can definitely jump this guy up a little bit. Don't have to talk about him too much, but this guy is the one, right? This is the Shaman card that significantly made it better. I can't imagine a version of Shaman where you're not including it. The overload's barely even a handicap here. You just like look to start your opener with like a 2/2/4 curve instead of a 2/3/4, and you just shape your mulligans and your curve around it accordingly. Has been great, and it has the upside with the totemic. And I don't know if you got anything to add or not, but I'm done.
Good card, good stuff. Makes Tuskar better. Is a solid card for Shaman. I still think Shaman's probably pretty bad overall, but this guy is definitely giving it a fighting chance. So
yeah, it's always going to be in Shaman. I think it's going to take a long time for the power creep on this guy to move up. So if you're somebody that likes to get golden stuff and craft goldens, and you like Shaman, this is definitely a good place to start with it. But at the same time, I don't know, those are ranked play rewards, so they kind of make me never want to craft a golden, common, or rare ever again.
I mean, you get at maximum 4 golden cards, or is it 3? It's 3, right? Because you get the card backs. No, you don't get a pack. Do you get a pack?
No.
Okay, so you get the card back, some amount of dust, and 3 cards. So you only ever get 3. So you can definitely still craft your golden cards.
You can. It's just I feel like it's gonna bite you a whole lot faster than it was ever going to in the past. I'll say that. For sure. All right, moving on here. Another Shaman card that we did discuss briefly, Thunderbluff Valiant. Inspire on a 5-mana 3/6 to give your totems +2 attack. Definitely, I think my favorite Shaman card that's come out. It's provided the most fun and kind of different ways to play it. It's difficult to play around, right? Because how much attention do you want to devote to your opponent's totems if they're finding ways with totemic to get multiple on the board, things like that. It becomes a lot more difficult, but if you don't keep them under control, you know, this guy comes out and turns them all into significant threats. How much have you played with this or played against it?
Haven't really played with it at all because Shaman is garbage and none of the golden Shaman cards that you get from leveling up the class are worth it. So I pretty much I messaged Blizzard and asked them if they could remove Shaman from the game for me, and they said they were going to sue me. So didn't pursue that any further.
I never thought about doing that.
You never thought about suing me?
Yeah, I gotta consider it now.
I had to consider that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, this card, I play around this card the same way I play around, like, if I think that they have Bloodlust in their deck, I'll kill all their guys. If I think that they're probably playing this card, I'll kill their totems if I have, like, an extra couple points. Like, honestly, like, this card isn't going to kill you out of nowhere as much as, like, a Bloodlust is. Like, Bloodlust, like, you have to kill all of their stuff, which is not reasonable. This guy, you just have to kill their totems, which a lot of times their totems are going to be pretty decent anyway, so you don't feel too bad. You don't feel too bad killing them. And if you can spare it, you might as well. You should probably be killing their minions anyway if they even have a chance to be running Bloodlust. So they get, you know, this guy has definitely had boards where I didn't kill the totems and I got punished pretty heavily by it, but I almost always kill this guy immediately and you know, kill the totems off after. Like having a couple, like having like 2 minions that can attack instantly that have +2 attack, and then him getting a new one that has +2 attack is probably about average and is only decent, I think. And then anything lower than that is pretty bad, and anything more than that is insurmountably good, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I've really got to say I've liked this card even playing it on an empty board. You know, obviously it's not ideal. If you have ways to mass totems or think you might, you'll probably save it and play other things.
Yeah, if it's a completely empty board, then yeah, this guy's great, because if he survives for any amount of turns, like, he's insane.
Right, and he just, because he pumps that first totem that you get from activating the Inspire ability, like, he instantly starts to, you know, overload the board a little bit. But
sure,
he's not a card. What he's not is a card that, you know, your board's empty, your opponent's board's not. Now it's going to take the game back over. Shaman really has been, this entire metagame so far, been something where you want to get board control early and then you can't let it go. If you let it go, you're done.
And that's been the systemic problem with Shaman since like the inception of the game. Like, you can gain board control, but you'll be overloaded for 2 turns, or not 2 turns, for 1 turn. Or you can play mediocre guys and get and lose board control and then lose the game on the spot, which is just not a good way to play the game of Hearthstone, sadly. There just isn't enough in Shaman to catch you back up. Like, even the like super board wipe card, I don't remember what it's called. It's got like Overload 5 or something. It deals like 7 damage, or deals like 4 or 5 damage. I don't remember what it's called. Deals a lot of damage and overloads you for a lot. Like, okay, you wipe the board, then what happens next turn? They play guys, they build a board, you start your turn with nothing and they have something. Like, okay, like, you just lose the game again. Not good enough. Right. It's not good enough. So Shaman, and like, even the draw 2 cards, overload 2, like, maybe that'll bring you back. I don't know. I haven't really seen much of that card at all. Very little bit of it.
Yeah, the style of Shaman where it's good, like really good, is not played. It needs to be more of a control-y style deck, in my opinion, for that card to really shine and be a 2 of. I think it's okay for, you know, a mid-rangey Shaman to play one of it, and I think it's Ancestral Knowledge. But yeah, I think it's okay for it to play one of it, because it's just, you know, late when you are top decking, it's a great way to just put a couple minions into your hand instead of just the one. And at 10 mana when you're close to top decking, you don't care about the overload. It's not actually a
True.
hindrance for you. But.
True. I definitely think that card's better in Control Shaman, but I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, that has not become viable in my opinion. Moving away from Shaman, finally, one that I've definitely been playing a lot recently is Effigy. It's a 3-mana secret for mages. When a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion with the same cost. A really, really interesting card. Kind of turns any minion into a piloted shredder.
Yeah.
But like better than a piloted shredder, right?
Way better.
It doesn't minus to the cost. It just keeps
gives
it the
you
same.
Straight up the same thing. Yeah, card is pretty insane. I don't remember how we rated this card, but I have to imagine it was pretty favorably.
We were definitely on the playable side of it. We expected to see it, but it's not like, I don't know. It can be really game breaking. I had a very interesting game with this card, and like I was talking about Ronin earlier. I think it was while we were actually casting instead of beforehand. But you know, I had a game where I had this out and an empty board, and like the next turn I slam Ronin, and I'm playing against Control Warrior, and he knows he's not stupid, right? Like,
yeah,
he's not just going to kill the Ronin right away. But at the same time, like, what are you going to do? Just keep getting cracked in the face for 7 every single turn? It's not necessarily the best option. But he was actually able to, like, get me to the point where I couldn't not play other minions anymore, right? Like, he forced me into playing other minions by making me dead to Grommash. And once I was dead to Grommash, I had to play Mirror Entity. And I went from guaranteeing myself an 8-drop off of it to, oh cool, I got a Wisp, and I'm not like that was what I got, was a Wisp.
Yeah, nice.
So it was definitely a little on the brutal side, but at the same time, like, it drastically changed the way he had to play his game, and it was something I planned from a ways out. So it was a really positive play for me. It shut him down for 3 turns. I think in that situation too, like, he had to whittle me down with weapons. He was lucky to have 2 of them, I think, is how it went down, because he couldn't play a minion. He didn't have anything that he could risk. He could neither risk to gamble, whether it was Effigy or Mirror Entity. His minions were too good, and mine was too good to kill. So it was a really interesting board state, and that's something I think that I love about this card. It's that it adds interesting board states. It really changes the way you play against your opponent. And I've been really happy with it so far, even though the average cost minion I'm getting is 2 or 3.
Yeah, and I mean, you're playing it in the tempo mage deck, right?
Yep.
So like that's probably like the minimum greatness of this card. Like if you play this in a heavier costed deck, like even like if you're playing something like Paladin Shredder, like obviously it's insane. If you're playing something like Gnomish Inventor, like you're almost certainly getting an upgrade from the Gnomish Inventor, and you already drew the card. Like it definitely has the ability to really just crush your opponent. Especially like we talked about this for secrets for a while. Like if your opponent plays around the wrong secret at any given time, like that's a huge window to just take the game away. So another playable secret in Mage's Arsenal is always a good thing for the hashtag secret package.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the most interesting play I've had with this card, I'm sorry, the funnest play, not the most interesting, but the funnest was when I had both secrets out, Mirror Entity and Effigy, and he played Antique Healbot, and then used his weapon to kill the Healbot that I got.
Yeah.
And then it turned straight into Emperor Sarad. Then he's
Nexus Champion Sarad.
Yes. I'm sorry. What did I say?
Emperor.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where that came from at all.
You're thinking Emperor Thorison.
Right. Yeah. I was just mushing the two together. But yeah, it gave me Nexus Champion Sarad, and he was completely out of mana for the turn. Like, he'd already used his weapon. Like, he just had to hand me the Nexus Champion Sarad and let me hero ability the next turn. It was pretty awesome.
Seems all right.
Yeah, I was okay with that. Also, when you're playing with Portal, Emperor Sarad, there I go again. Nexus Champion Sarad on 2 mana is overpowered.
Yeah, seems all right.
Yeah, it was okay. I've been having so much fun with Tempo Mage lately. I'm excited to play it in the after show a little bit. So if you're watching on Twitch, please do stick around. All right, so the next card here, John, is Justicar Trueheart, and I've got to eat a little crow on this one. 6 mana, 6/3 battle cry. Replace your starting hero power with a better one. Where I said this was best is possibly at its worst. No,
Is the only place it doesn't see play.
It's definitely not at its worst. I think it's at its worst in Rogue and Druid.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But it is supremely unplayable in Rogue, Druid, Shaman, Mage, anything that's not Paladin, Priest, and Warrior. This card is not playable. But I also think its impact in those decks in those 3 decks is greater than I thought it would be when I thought it had more widespread use across the board. Just an incredible card. So basically, if you haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, you're probably not watching the show, but I'll treat it like you might be anyways. You know, this deck is great at winning the long game, okay? So if you're playing Priest or you're playing Warrior, and now you're healing or armoring up for 4, or tanking up, which you found out the name's different. It's called tank up when it's for 4 armor, and I like that as a Warrior tank. But
nerd.
That's fine. So are you. Just a different brand of nerd. We're all of the same flock here. True. This is a safe place. So yeah, this gives you incredible survivability. What this has done for me in Warrior is, at times, and I think it might have a serious impact on the matchup, really changed the Druid matchup for Warrior. It's a lot harder to get me into combo range if I'm gaining 4 armor every turn instead of 2. In Priest, it's going to have a similar effect. You know, it gains you 4, it gets you back up to 30 faster. I do think it's more powerful in Warrior because you don't cap out, you can just go over. But also in Paladin, what it does is it gives you, like, infinite board presence. Like, you never are going to have nothing on the board. You're going to play the minion you drew. You're going to hero power every turn for 2 1/1s. It really helps, you know, make Quartermaster just an automatic 2 of, whereas before it was like maybe I'll play 1 because it's broken when I get it on turn 8 with the muster for battle. Now it's just every turn has a muster for battle built into it. You know, it's always going to be something to do. And an interesting thing to note here is that when you have 10 mana and you draw this really late in the game, you use your hero ability, you play it, and then you get to use your hero ability again. So a really, really powerful swing. You know, that's 6 armor or 6 life if you're healing, or 3 guys if you're playing it in Paladin. So
yeah, it's pretty sweet. Yeah, the games where I'm like, okay, this is going to be a grindy matchup, and they play the Trueheart, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a long one.
Right? Like, oh, good, it's going to be grindy and it's going to be slow, and I can't change that, and also I can't win this game. So great.
Yeah, I might as well just concede now.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, you know, when especially in like a mirror match when he has one and you don't. It's good night. It's over.
Yeah.
And now, John, what I want to ask you is, are there any uses of this card that you haven't seen yet that you think might still be viable? Whether it needs new cards to come out, or maybe just a new perspective.
Yeah, I still think that somewhere in the aether there's that hero power inspire mage control deck that we were talking about, and I think this guy might be in that mix. He's at least a consideration in that deck. Like, he automatically makes your hero power the whatever the 2 mana 3/2 fallen hero. So I think maybe it's got potential in that deck, but let's see. Druid, no. Excuse me. Hunter, probably not. Warlock is really bad, I think, and I think I hate to tell you, man, I think it's terrible in Shaman as well.
Well, what I'm going to say is I don't think it's terrible in Shaman. I'm still convinced it's really good in Shaman. What I'll say, though, is it doesn't make a deck that's bad good. It makes a deck that's good a little bit better at the long game. So until they make Control Shaman good, I don't think we can really know. Because what I found out here, John, is that if you play this in Shaman, You
Yeah.
can stack as many taunt totems on top of each other as you want. You're no longer limited by the I can only have one of them.
Really?
You just pick it. It just hits the board. 4 of them come up on the screen, and you click, and nothing else matters.
That's pretty sweet.
So
that all right, okay. I'll give Shaman. Okay, so I think my number one next in line to the Iron Throne is Mage. And then once that wedding happens, spoilers.
The orange wedding. Since it's a legendary, it's the orange wedding.
The orange wedding. Yes. Then I'll give Shaman the nod. Shaman will be the Tommen. Shaman and Tom and Shaman.
Tom and Shaman it is.
Didn't even plan that. I didn't even plan that.
It's just a fat little kid you never expect to amount to anything, and then there he is.
And then he bangs the best.
We don't do spoilers on this show.
Yes.
As we literally get Bible thumps in chat about the possibility of it. Don't worry, Archangel, we got you. We're not going anywhere. We'll save it for the upcoming to be announced Game of Thrones podcast that we do way too late for it to be successful.
Let's just announce it now. When season 6 comes out, when season 6's date is announced, Unleash the Cast will be turned into of.
Just because we might add a second podcast to our resume does not mean this one will stop.
Game of Pones. There we go.
Unleash the.
Maybe it should be a pun-based podcast.
The cast.
Oh,
we got there, boys. Boys. All right, enough planning other podcasts during this podcast, though.
We don't want to give away spoilers for that.
I mean, we're not going to do it off the show. We'll keep you guys in the loop, but we'll just save a little bit for next week. We'll plan a little bit more of it later.
Getting too excited now.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to be excited at all because I think that series is just we're too far into it for any new podcast to be successful. But I'll still do it.
We'll do it better. We'll just do it better.
All right, I'm in. Moving on here, though, we've got a 2-mana priest card. It is a 1/4 with Battle Cry.
It's not.
Two mana. It has, if you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and taunt. So essentially, in the deck where you're going to be playing it, it's a 2/4 taunt for 2 mana. Really turns out, John, that this was exactly what priest needed. A proactive 2-drop that you can drop on the board early in the game was not anything it's really had before. It's no longer the dream for the priest player to be able to still have your opponent at full HP, so that way you can heal him and tell him that the light shall burn him. That used to be the best 2-mana play for priests, and it is no longer the case. Now we get to build a board presence. I've been playing with this deck and this card a fair amount, John, so I'll let you kind of take the lead here and start us off.
Yeah, I think this card paired with a card I'm hoping that is coming up soon are probably the top 2 reasons why we're not seeing all-in aggressive decks.
Yes.
Early taunts, efficiently costed early taunts really put a damper into the game plan of any sort of aggressive deck. Like when I was playing Face Hunter, I actually randomly got paired up against Lucids on the ladder. He was playing Druid. He goes turn 3, coin out Sen'jin. I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. Turn 4, play a Sen'jin on 4. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I dealt with that one too. Turn 5, Sludge Belcher. I'm like, okay, I got a really good draw. I can deal with this, and I'm still gonna have stuff. Turn 6, Sludge Belcher. It's like, all right, that's done. I'm done there. That's enough. Like that's good enough for me, boys. I'm out. But sometimes even having that, like without the coin, like not having your taunt until turn 4 is not going to be good enough against some draws for the aggressive deck. Having it on turn 2 and having that turn 2, like, actually have power, not just be a 0/4 taunt for 1, like, is huge. Like, it just deals with so much. And being in priest, having the ability to heal it back up, so you can take out any sort of X2 and heal back up and just have a really annoying threat on turn 2. for Priest.
Yeah, I can't even, like, I have to do extra work. There's no 2-mana card I can play, to my knowledge, that'll just kill it, right? At least not playable ones. Like, there's going to be Soulfire that you can do on 1 mana.
Shadow Word. Shadow Word.
Okay, yep, Shadow Word is one, but it's not even, like, great in that matchup, right? Like, in the mirror match, this isn't a liability, but it's not great either. So, you know, there's not really many ways for people to take this out. And the best way I can think of is kind of like something that's previously been an absolute nightmare for Priest. You go turn 1 Northshire Cleric, and on turn 2 your opponent plays Knife Juggler. If you do not have the Power Word Shield, you're like just losing your guy. And even if you have it, he doesn't need to go way out of his way. Like, he just needs to win 2 coin flips, and he can just kill it for free, and his guy doesn't even die. This now just stands in front of it and just protects that turn 1 play, and that card that really lets you, you know, prolong the game like crazy because you're healing your minions in order to get the effect, and then also like draws you cards and really helps stabilize you. And don't worry, we're getting to the card you want to talk about, I think, right after this.
Yep.
But yeah, this card just does a phenomenal job of staving off any early aggression, and it's just, I think, the best 2-drop in Hearthstone right now. I don't know.
Probably true, actually. I think so. Definitely the most impactful in the new meta.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, standalone, it's the best, and Knife Juggler, I think, is the only one that competes. I mean, maybe Mad Scientist because of the value you can get from it.
It's definitely Mad Scientist, but I think that his impact has been lowered, is not as big as what this guy's is right now.
Right, like he's doing more for this deck than any other 2-drop's doing for its deck. And I don't think it's really close. And if you do kind of take things in a vacuum, you know, this doesn't require anything else. You don't have to put something else in your deck to make Mad Scientist. You know, you have to put something else in your deck to make Mad Scientist good. You have to have another minion for the next turn to get added value from Juggler. And this card, you just like, I mean, you have to have a dragon in your hand, but you built the Dragon Priest deck, so you've probably got one.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably have a minion for Juggler, too. Either way, though, it's really close between those, and when you're talking about a card that's on par with Knife Juggler, you're talking about a phenomenal card.
Right.
Moving on here, John, I'm pretty sure this is what you wanted to discuss. It is Twilight Guardian, the 4-mana 2/6 dragon with Battle Cry. If you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and taunt. This is a neutral minion, and it's an epic as well, so it's a little pricey to get your hands on if you're a newer player. But a huge impact on the metagame, and like you said, one of those cards that takes Dragon Priest and puts it on the map and makes it very good and very playable. And John, I'll let you talk about why that is.
Yeah, I mean, having that extra toughness just puts it that much above Sen'jin, and the fact that it itself as a dragon is nice to pump your other dragon spells. Just the ability to curve out from the 2/4 into this, you know, with a coin or at 1 turn in between is just such a huge roadblock for other decks. And the fact that you have Velen's Chosens that you can put on these taunt guys, just even in the late game, having like the 2/4 and giving it a Velen's Chosen, making it a 4/8 is just huge. Huge at pretty much any point in the game, and you know, putting a Velen's Chosen on this guy is also insane. It's just it quells the aggressive draws. The stats are good enough to be able to hold its own, even if you don't necessarily need the taunt. It's just all around great card.
Yeah, I was looking at chat a little bit when you talked, so I don't know if I'm repeating anything you said, but 3 power stands right in front of Patron, so Patron has to then execute this, and if Patron is executing your 4-drops, that gives you a really good opportunity to let your bigger minions stick. You know, maybe your Chillmaws or what have you are going to stick around and play a bigger impact later, or even just if you're able to keep the board. You know, Dragon Priest plays 2 Holy Novas in it, and then it has like 4 spell power cards in it as well. So if they play out a Patron turn, or even a Frothing Berserker turn. You know, a Frothing Berserker is going to include some form of Whirlwind effect, so it's adorable that Berserker has the 4 toughness, but it always dies to, you know, a 3 damage Holy Nova.
Right.
So now, you know, you've got all these ways to take down, or I'm sorry, to force the warrior decks to use their executes early, use their removal, and then they're not even doing it on the things that are going to kill them. You know, they're just doing it to be able to stay competitive in the game and be able to attack through this wall here. So yeah, this card's been great. And if you're going to play some Dragon Priest, I'll give you a little bit of a pro tip, or at least it's what I do with it. I don't mulligan this card. There's not many decks where I keep 4-drops. This is one of them because he enables, you know, the Twilight Drake. Still can't believe I play that card, but I do. The Wyrmrest agents and those smaller ones that need to get pumped, as well as...
Oh, you not Twilight Drake. You mean Twilight Drake is...
Oh, yeah, that's the 4-mana. What is it?
Thinking of the 1-mana 2/3.
Yeah, the 2/1 that becomes a 2/3.
Yeah, let me see if I can... Oh, no.
Twilight's something, I think. I do think it's Twilight, but I don't know.
I don't know. I'll find it in a second, so go on.
Twilight Whelp, chat.
Twilight Whelp, yes.
Thank you very much, chat, for that. But we are running a little low on time here, so I'm going to move things along, and we're going to start talking about some of these Paladin cards, John. Murloc Knight. First of all, it's a fish riding a frog, so...
It's murky, it's OP, Murky's OP in Heroes, Murky's OP here.
Yeah, it's definitely not Murky, I don't think, but it's a...
Has the same voice as Murky. It does have the same voice as Murky.
That could very well be. I don't even know what this one says, but it's a 4-mana 3/4 with Inspire, summon a random Murloc. It is a Murloc, so when Murloc Knight summons Murloc Knight, your opponent is going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal card at both being kind of a mid-rangey card that stands up well. It's not a great cost, but it snowballs so well that it really helps maintain board presence.
It's only -1/-1 off of Yeti, which I mean is pretty big, but its ability is so insane. Like even if you like, there's really not like just getting a random 2/1 is still good enough. Like the card is really, really good, and like the difference between this guy and like the Justicar Totemic is like the downside of this guy is really not that bad. Like getting a 2/1 sure is pretty bad, but like you're also getting a 1/1 in theory because you obviously hero powered. So like you just have this guy out from nothing and you have a nice board going on. Like, and if you have any way to protect him or he survives any number of turns, like the Murloc synergies are insane. You have the upside of getting any of the Murloc Lords or old Murkai and just doing crazy things. You have the possibility to get another Murloc Knight. Like he's just huge. He's just great. And he's another one of the cards that like every Murloc that comes out makes Murloc Knight better, and he's already good. So I'm in on Murloc Knight.
Yeah, he's really good, and I've been a really big fan of these more powerful early game minions that force your opponents to use, you know, your warriors to use your shield slams. Your Shaman only has 2 hexes, and there's times Shaman has to hex this thing. And that's really what I've been a big fan of with this card is it doesn't ever win the game for me. In the traditional respects where I play it and then it dominates the board and wins it, but it exhausts your opponent's answers faster. It keeps, if you go on turn 4, you go Murloc Knight, you typically would want to wait for the Inspire mechanic, but there's draws and times where you don't, and it really does a great job of like being that lightning rod and pulling those answers. And when your opponent spends 3 mana to kill your 4-mana guy, he wastes a mana on his turn, he doesn't commit anything else to the board, and you've probably already played like, a hero ability and a shielded mini-bot or something like that by this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really like it from that respect. And if they don't answer it, they learn why they should.
Yes, very quickly.
Moving on here, of course, the Mysterious Challenger, John, is a 6-mana 6/6 with Battle Cry of put 1 of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. Really, maybe the defining card from TGT and one that got
Yep.
dropped on us in the big wave at the end. We didn't even talk
Yep.
about it on the show.
Nope.
We did not get to say that we thought that Paladin secrets were terrible and that this card just wouldn't see any play.
Which we almost certainly would have.
Well, we definitely would have. There's no doubt in my mind I wouldn't have liked this card very much.
Nope.
But instead, John, what it does is you play it, and then your opponent either has one of the two copies of the cards in their deck that give them an out, or they die. And that's really kind of how it's played out. What have you seen so far with the Secret Paladin deck? We talked a lot about 2 episodes ago, I think.
I think the first week it came out, it was absolutely insane because people didn't know the proper way to play around the secrets. They underestimated, like we almost certainly would have, how good this guy is when you play him. I think it's gotten toned down a little bit. People are building their decks with this in mind. They know exactly which secrets are coming out, and they know exactly how to play around them correctly. It's still such an overwhelming amount of value to have to deal with in a pretty short amount of time because it makes a very big minion. But I think if you go into it expecting that it's going to happen, you build your deck ready for this deck. You go into the turn knowing exactly what's going to happen and what you're likely going to have to deal with, and you can minimize the variance of like the avenges and the bring a guy back. Like you can minimize the impact of those cards. Like it gets less good, but it's still very, very good. And sometimes you can go underneath the deck, like you can out aggressive it. Which is another strategy, but like we said before, like the metagame punishes the very aggressive decks because there's, multiple decks that are running very good early game taunts. So it's a nice scissors to the paper and rock of the traditional control and aggro decks in the format.
Yeah, and Blizzard has made it apparent that they strive to create new ways to play classes when they come out with new sets. It's one of the things they look to do, and they definitely nailed it with this one. I don't know that there's anything we can do to make this deck unplayable, because the value of 4 and 5 secrets hitting the board at once straight out of your deck is out of this world. But like John said, if they flip 4 of them or they flip 5 of them, one of them's get down, one of them's redemption, the one that brings your guy back with 1 toughness, and one of them's avenge. So you attack with something on the board, the worst thing you've got that doesn't die to the 2/1, and then the avenge pumps this guy, and that's fine because I've been waiting to Shadow Word Death it until after the avenge hit it,
right,
and after the redemption was gone. So like you said, you have to know how to play against this. You have to know how to mulligan against Paladin. It changed the way you will mulligan with every deck against that class now.
Yep.
But once you learn it, it's not so bad. The deck's not broken. It's just good.
Right. Like a lot of times, like when I was playing this deck, people would just like make stupid trades. They'd be like, "Oh, I got to kill this guy now. Oh, I triggered his avenge. Oops." Where like, if you just like sandbag like a flame strike or something like that, where you can either wipe all the minions at once or like make sure that the avenge goes on the mysterious challenger and then you BGH it or something like that, where like you don't get randomly ranched by the avenge going on a 1/1 and then he has a 6/6 and a 4/3. Like those are the games that you lose because you can't, like, you need 2 mass removal spells to deal with that instead of 1 and like some change to deal with this guy. But like I said, I think the experienced player can play around Secrets Paladin much more effectively than what was previously thought when the deck first came out. But it's still very good.
Excuse me. Yeah, and the last card we're going to talk about is kind of the 4th secret, the one I didn't mention yet that's always played in this deck. And that's Competitive Spirit. What this does is it gives all your minions +1/+1 at the start of your turn. It's the only secret I can think of that breaks the new secret rule and says it can only trigger on your opponent's turn. So it's unique in that regard as well. But also it creates an added dimension to the secret deck that's playing Secret Keeper, has Muster for Battle, Shielded Minibot, has a really solid early game. And if your opponent's not building a board, playing control, having a competitive spirit in your hand can really give you a good opportunity to just boost your board and get really aggressive and really put your opponent on the back foot long before you play your insane value turn with the Mysterious Challengers. So really added a wrinkle to that deck.
Yeah, this definitely, competitive spirit definitely allows you to be like, I'll let the Mysterious Challenger be a side note. I'm gonna go turn 1 competitive spirit, turn 2 coin out muster, and you know, sometimes they just don't kill a guy. Like if they can't kill all the muster tokens, they just won't kill any because they think it's likely avenge.
Yeah.
So then you just start the turn and boom, you've got 3 2/2s in play on turn 3 at the start of turn 3 and a 1/4 weapon. You know, that's pretty good. It's not bad. And then, you know, you factor in the fact that you still have the Mysterious Challenger to play on turn 6. Like,
unless you're me, then you don't have Mysterious Challenger on 6 ever. I swear, I'm like not allowed to play the best deck. I just never have it. I still do like okay with the deck because it's solid even without Challenger. Like you can still win plenty of games.
Wait, you don't own Challengers, so you just don't draw them?
No, I'm saying I just don't have them on 6. Like I draw them.
Oh, okay.
Too late,
I was
and,
going
like,
to.
I'm just gonna get.
I was gonna say, like, how do you not have them? Pretty sure I saw you open them. Okay,
yeah,
I understand now. Gotcha.
All right, moving on here, John. We've got our second game as we're over on time again, back in true regular show form, running
regular show where we're going way over. Yep.
Yeah, we'll probably skip our little deck tech we were gonna do, save it for a week when we don't go way over on time. But so feel free, do get your Q&As in if you have any questions to ask us. Now is the time. Drop them in Twitch chat for us, and we will take a look at them and answer them for you after we play Stump the Blevens. If you don't know what this is I give John 2 cards in Hearthstone, and he gives us the enters the battlefield sound effect or the attack, but he's never once given me the attack sound effect, but technically
might have
rules. But John, our typical example, we'll go with it again this week to show people what we're going to do here. Sludge Belcher, please.
Becomes feel funny.
All right, so John is an absurdly good mimic of these card sounds, and that's why we do this, to show that off a little bit. Because why have talents if you're not going to use them, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't know.
All right, John. Well, the first card we're going to do, and both of these cards are cards we've talked about in depth today. So
it's going to be even worse when I miss them.
Right back in your face. Thunderbluff Valiant, John. I know you.
Why would you ever
pick a Shaman card?
Pick a Shaman card?
I like winning, John.
You're such a piece of garbage. I got nothing. No idea.
There is a lot at stake here.
There is a lot at stake here.
Nope. Never would have guessed that.
It's good. And I like steak, so count it. It works.
Scum.
All right, John. Now this one, it's going to hit too close to home. When you miss this card,
oh god,
you're never going to forget what the name of it is again, because on this podcast you missed this sound, okay? Savage Combatant.
Savage Combatant.
It's that 5/4 Druid beast.
Oh god, I can think of its voice. And I can think it says something. Oh god, I don't know what it is. I know what it is though. Oh god, I'm gonna feel bad. I know. I can imagine it saying something. It's some stupid pun or something, isn't it?
Oh, it's not a stupid pun. It's the greatest pun ever for this podcast, and that's
is it unleash
the beast?
Something like that.
Unleash the beast.
All right, I spoon-fed it to him to give him a point this week. But nonetheless, he got there after all.
Yes.
We don't.
I pretty much knew it. I just couldn't remember what pun it was.
We don't need to spam Feels Bad Man in chat or anything like that. We can just move on here with another victorious week for your opponent. A-Flex beat you up last week, if memory serves.
I'm sure he did, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've definitely won every time it's been me since the new cards.
Yeah,
You've been slacking a little bit on these new cards.
Yeah, but I also have I've just built up so many backlogged points from like all the weeks of everything I got.
All the weeks where I ran out of cards that were interesting or challenging and just had
and then you started to get, and then you just started to pick off like random garbage cards from Arena, and I was still getting those too.
Right, and I was just like, hey, I like Bomb Lobber. Let's do this again for the 4th time.
You did pick Bomb Lobber at least twice.
Yeah, at least twice. I don't care. I'd do it again. I'll pick it again. But moving on here, there we go. Questions away, guys. All right. So, why is Shaman so bad, John?
Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. It's the type of class where you absolutely need to have board control in order to do anything. And when you lose board control, you lose the game because there's really no way to catch up. And you have ways of wiping your opponent's board, possibly with stuff like Lightning Storm and that new giant Lightning Storm. But they don't progress your board, and they impede you from progressing your board on the following turn via Overload. So, in a nutshell, that's why I believe Shaman is so bad.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. You kind of hit all the points. Like, you have to have board control, and it's not exceptionally great at resetting your opponent's board. It just kind of lacks those tools. It makes great trades, but if your opponent's ahead and you're playing things that don't have charge, and nothing in your deck has charge, you know, you're just never going to win that back. You're never going to. It's so hard to take it back over. That it's just not working out for it right now. And to say, you know, why is it so bad? It's viable now. You know, the 3/4 is really good. Like, it's not unreasonable to more than 50% of the time be able to maintain board control with Shaman. So it's a very viable class now, much more so than it was before. And like we were talking about, you know, like we were saying, Mech Mage at its, or Mech Shaman at its best was probably better than this current Shaman, like the Totem, any of the new Shamans that have come out. It's probably better than any of these decks are right now, and maybe Mech Shaman's still very viable. I've seen it on ladder. Like, it still just bursts people down like crazy when you pump up the spinning up.
Oh, spinning up!
Whirling Zap-O-Matic. There it is. Yeah. Well, all right. So yeah, that'll wrap up that one question there. And then also we did have another one from earlier. I'm going to add a little bit to it because they asked if Patron was still the best deck. And John, I'm going to add an addendum to that and make you tell us why.
I think you can answer it with the screen you have up right now.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So Patron Warrior. Nothing really changed. Actually, literally nothing changed in Patron Warrior. There are 0 TGT cards to my knowledge in the current Patron list. Literally 0 TGT cards. Honestly, the same sorts of things are true. Like, it can win against aggressive decks because it wipes their board. In a format where there are multiple tier 1 to 2 Paladin decks, any Patron Warrior is going to thrive in a format where it's playing against a lot of Paladin, just inherently. So that's another reason. The other reason is I think that some of the top players in the world are just so much further ahead of people playing Patron. Like, they just know exactly which lines to take, or at least, you know, like Life Coach playing Patron, probably, I'm just going to assume he's the best player of Patron in the world. I don't know. Maybe Strifecrow. I don't know.
Do you think the guy that takes too long with his turns is going to be the best Patron player in the world?
Yeah. I mean, does he I mean, he goes to rope every turn, but does he rope out normally?
I would have to think so. I haven't truthfully seen him play it a lot, and I've seen, like, I try to really watch him when he is in tournaments because I learn so much watching him play other things.
Here's the thing, whether or not he ropes out, and I doubt that he's going to be roping out in tournaments too often. Like, he probably plays a little bit faster if he needs to. The thing is that he thinks about turns 3 or 4 turns in advance, which is very hard to do with Patron Warrior, but if you can effectively do that, it rewards you so much. More than any other deck I've seen in Hearthstone since the inception of Hearthstone. Except for maybe the old Combo Warrior with Young Brewmaster, the old Warsong Commander, and Molten Giant, which is no longer exists. But I think that Patron has the ability to adapt to the whatever deck it's playing around very well. It's just, if you don't know how to do that, it's not good enough. But it can be good enough. You just have to know what to do in each matchup exactly. And I was just scraping the surface of like how to play each matchup effectively when I was playing it a lot. And I was doing all right. I definitely... here's what it boils down to. I spent 5 minutes talking about this. It boils down to the skill cap for Patron is way higher than any other deck in Hearthstone, and it rewards you accordingly. That's the long and short. That's the too long didn't read of what I just have spent the last 5 minutes talking about.
Well, and there was a little bit of a follow-up. There was a little bit of follow-up to that, and I'll field that end of it. And does anything beat Patron? What are Patron's bad matchups? And chat helped a little bit, and this is a deck I've been playing a lot, though I'm not great at it, is Echo Mage is really good against it. That's the deck we were going to deck tech. If you're not familiar with it, ask me about it in the after show. I'll be happy to provide you with a list. A lot of fun, very difficult to play. Also, Handlock is historically very, very good against it. Anything that can reliably sweep the board for 3 and 4 toughness is going to be pretty good at it. Also, Control Warrior is typically fairly strong against Patron because they play 2 brawls now, and that deck is a good part of the reason why.
Yep. Decks that can deal with threats without having a lot of minions in play, like Echo Mage, like Handlock, like Control Warrior, are generally pretty good, because if you need to, even if you gum up the board with big minions that patrons can't kill, you can still get ranched because they go off with double Berserker and do like 40 damage from nothing. That's the problem. You know, Echo Mage plays a bunch of 8/8s, and if you get, I'm thinking if you get 2 taunted 8/8s, Patron's not going to be able to get through that and kill you for a lot of damage. And if they can, you have Ice Block. Yeah. So then you kill them on the swing back. So that's a reason why it's good. Handlock is the same way. If you get 2 taunted 8/8s, it's probably good enough to deal with a lot of what Patron Warrior has to do. It also has Hellfires, which wipe the board pretty nicely. You're constantly drawing cards, pretty much unimpeded, because Patron doesn't really put a whole heck of a lot of early pressure without wiping the board of small minions. So Handlock has been a natural counter to it. The Echo Mage, like you said, and Control Warrior with 2 brawls is generally pretty good as well. Besides that, I think that you can, in fact, go underneath the Patron deck. People all the time were telling me, oh, Patron's matchup against Face Hunter is very good. It's super favored. You're like 80-20. I'm like, you're a moron, because if you don't draw the Armor Smith, or if you draw it too late, or if you don't have, or if you play it too early, you play it wrong. If you don't have a Whirlwind, if you don't have other minions, like, it's not good enough. Like, you
or
don't.
Even if they just deal with it well, like
if they just
answer it well.
Right. Like, if you have, like, oh, but it triggers. You can trigger the explosive trap and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah. If they play the explosive trap, if they just know better that to not play the explosive trap into your 30 minions and Armor Smith to just gain a bunch of life, like, then it's not as good. Like, it was very frustrating when people would be like, oh, you should be winning that matchup. I'm like, you're a moron. show me show me what I'm doing wrong, please. Like, I didn't draw Armor Smith. How do you win the matchup? How do you win that matchup? I would love to know.
Yeah, Face Hunter was definitely in the 50-50 area-ish at its best.
Yeah,
so
I think so too.
I think a lot of the decks that fight Patron well fight Face Hunter well at the same time.
Right.
I think so.
Right.
Whether that's coincidence or not, or at least they don't have bad matchups against it. So the decks answering Face Hunter kind of took Face Hunter, or I'm sorry, the decks answering Patron kind of helped minimize the impact of Face Hunter a little bit. But nonetheless, we will kind of stop things here, John. So I don't know if you have anything in closing for these guys and gals.
Thought we had one more question somewhere, but I don't remember where it was.
It wasn't a serious question.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well,
yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Well, that wraps up episode 31, guys. It was a pleasure to cast for you guys once again. We will be back, of course, next week. We will be looking for a streamer to kind of bring on. So if there's any streamers you guys like, if you know we know them, that obviously helps as well. Please do feel free to make suggestions, kind of like we did with the streamer spotlight. We just want to take things a bit further, bring the guys onto the show and talk to them.
Oh, or if you are a streamer that is watching the show right now and hosted Deathblow at some point last week. Oh, maybe he's not in here
too
anymore.
late. Spoon's already gone, nonetheless.
All right. Well, if you guys know someone who is in our network, so to speak, that you'd like to see on the show, let them know that you'd like to see them on our show, and then they can let us know, or you can let us know, whatever.
Yeah,
we're going to try to get something to work.
Or it'll just be less awkward when we ask them, because nerds are nothing if not awkward.
I ain't awkward. Well, I'm going to see what I can do.
Yeah,
this would have been much easier for me to do 3 months ago, but I, got a job and blah, 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 blah. Fell off the face of the earth.
You're the worst. We understand. But we appreciate you sticking with the podcast nonetheless, because I would hate to hear Peach try to imitate card sounds when we do Stump with Peach.
I would love to hear Stump.
It would probably be more entertaining than when you do it, but they would be less spot on.
Peach still needs to get legend before he can host the show. So
it's true. He can join us and like he has in the past. But if he wants to solo host the show, just him, no me, no blevens. Just Peach.
No backgrounds.
It
requires...
He's
just going to randomly be streaming on your channel for some reason.
Right. Well, he can at any time. I could do this podcast from his stream one day if I got bored. It's just a different button to click. You can see my screen. They can't. Like, I have him.
I do.
I could put this on the GameCore Twitch page if I really wanted to. John would probably not like that very much.
Did you do it on all three?
What's that?
At the same time?
I don't know. I've never tried to stream from multiple channels before. It's something to consider.
Well, that's what we're doing next week, folks.
Yeah, we could try that. Like, I wouldn't mind having a separate Unleash the Podcast Twitch page, but at the same time, it's just 2 chats we'd have to watch. It'd be a nightmare. Nonetheless, guys, we really appreciate you stopping by, hanging out with us today. Stick around if you are on Twitch. We will be doing the after show, playing some games. I already did my Tavern Brawl win. Congratulations. You don't have to watch that. So we'll probably just be playing some Tempo Mage games and hanging out and having a good time. So
yeah.
See you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Unleash the beast.
Yes. Yes.
Everyone, get in here!